photo is, all of these are Cibachrome prints. Okay, this is a process that I started with the first year it came to this country, and I loved it. In the first print that I did, I just loved it. And I hadn't actually found a color print material in photography that I liked before that. So this is, I was a duck to water. I didn't know what I was getting into. It proved to be a lot harder than I thought. But the material and I got along really well. And it has not been made for over 10 years, so you're seeing the last of it. I can't make prints, Cibachrome color prints anymore. And so this was all curated from what's sitting in drawers and pulling stuff out, including some stuff I've never shown before, and things I completely forgot were there. So that's the advantage of looking back and digging down into the drawers as you find stuff that you forgot about. So that's one of the unique elements, I guess, to the show. Another contributing factor right now has been the pandemic. So I don't think I've had a solo show for at least 5 years. Maybe you could correct me, but at least 5 years. And that's because during the pandemic, there wasn't a way to do this. We couldn't do it. So this is my first exhibit since then, and solo exhibit, and it feels really good to have my hands in the photos again and framing and pulling the pictures out. And then it's especially exciting when they come up on the walls in a whole exhibit, where I think my goal, and I think a lot of people's goal, is to have more in the sum than the individual parts. And so I find it so exciting to see the work on the wall. One piece relates to another piece, and so it feels very good. And also, thanks to everyone here for coming. That's the next part of it. Okay, that's another part of the excitement of doing this. I would like to take a minute to talk about the Altai project that Esther and I worked on. First of all, Esther, where are you? My wife, Esther Jacobson Tepfer, back there. If it hadn't been for Esther and her research at her project, I never would have gone to the Altai. So, Esther, thank you so much.
Less expensive for me than marry the photographer.
In case you didn't, Esther says it was less expensive to marry the photographer than to try to hire the photographer. So, okay. It's been an amazing, the project went on for almost 20 years of actual field work, and we had to learn how to do it and invent what we were doing. And it was a challenge all the way up and down, but it was a great challenge. And so it really formed a whole part of our lives. And so that's what you see here. Are photos taken of moments. The photos you see on the walls were frequently taken when I had my own little moment to take photographs. So we'd spend day in and day out, 4 cameras, Esther with notepads, GPS, locating archaeology, surface monuments, rock art, and all day long. And so the moments to actually go out and be able just to concentrate on taking photos like the one right behind Tom there. I was standing on the top of the world there, on Tavan Bog, which is the highest peaks in the whole area. And it was one of the days, maybe just a few days of the whole period there where I was able to actually get up onto a mountain like that. Being a mountaineer, that was heaven on earth to get up to the top. So that was one of those moments that I was able to get out just for photos. The Altai project started Esther was invited to work in the Russian Altai in 1989 with a Russian photographer, archaeologist. And after that project, she realized she needed to have a photographer. And that to do what she wanted to do, she needed to have a photographer. So I went back on the next trip, and then we worked together all the way through. And we had Russian archaeologists we were working with, Mongolian archaeologists as well, and finally truck drivers, assistants, and cook. That was a small group, 8 or 9 people, very small. And that was the first 10 years of the project were, what do we call that?
The Mongolian American Russian
The project. So that produced, you see some blue books on the table there, produced five of those books. And Esther, you'll see on another table back there, Esther kind of tells the story of the project and her involvement in this field work. And so that's a brand new book, but she has another book out since then. So she's not sitting resting on her laurels. She's very, very active, and of course when you do one book, it brings up a whole nother project. So now she's, you get your handful?
God, yes.
Okay. But it's still going on, and we're not going to Mongolia. It's a long ways off. It'd be very hard to do field work for us now, but we're going to keep on working with this material, especially Esther. So after those first 10 years, was it 10 years?
It was 10 years then and then 5 years after.
Yeah, so, and then another 5 years when Esther and I worked together. And I should also say there's a third really important part to this project, and that was James Meacham, the head of the infographics lab at the University of Oregon. Without his mapping skills, this couldn't have happened either. It took superb mapping skills, because there were no maps of this area. And we stumbled on probably the highest concentration of rock art and surface monuments perhaps in the world. Is that correct?
Simply in
North Asia and perhaps even greater world. And so to put all that together, try to imagine up and down a valleys for 25 kilometers, rock art everywhere and monuments everywhere. And it took GPS technology to be able to even comprehend what was there and then to record that. So there's a great depth to this project. So we went back another time after that, but that was the bulk of the work in the field. I went back one winter. You'll see some winter photographs here, and I was curious as a photographer how people could survive in this harsh climate and thrive over thousands of years. And in the summertime when we were here, let's see, I'm standing right in one. This is not an uncommon summer day, okay? And this was in August. This was on my birthday, and so I said, how it was cold and frigid, and in the summertime. So I said, how could this be a cradle of civilization? And how do they make it in the winter? So out of curiosity, I went back with the help of our good Mongolian friend. And we spent about 2 weeks up in these mountains in the winter time, and you'll see some winter photographs here, all taken at that time. And the truth is, I learned that they have a little niche that they exploit extremely well, and they can live a wonderful life, even under the harshest of conditions. And you can say also, it was really hard to take photographs in the cold. So, when I arrived in Ulaanbaatar, it was minus 30 degrees, and it was mostly between minus 20 and 30 for that time. And electronics don't work, so that wasn't a problem for me. All my cameras are mechanical, but your fingers, when you change film, freeze. Tips freeze. Changing lenses, fingers stick to the metal. And so it was a real challenge. And if you went into a yurt to get warm, or a ger as the Mongols call it, your camera warms up. If you go outside, then it just covers with frost. So there's some learning curve to figure out how to work in the field, but even in the wintertime, it's all doable. If it gotten any colder, I couldn't work outside. That would have been awesome. So I think the thing I'd like to just talk about now would be what I would call fortuitous moments. That is, he's got a student recital he has to go to. So, I would say almost all of the photographs in this exhibit happen at fortuitous moments. Okay, behind Jerome there's an encampment on the Tell River. I was sitting on a hill. We were on our way out of Mongolia. It was our first field season where we were surveying the area for archaeology. And we were trying to get to an airport. We camped there. And this, I saw in the distant hills, I could see a caravan of camels coming down, serpentine down the valley. And I just sat there, and a young couple, I don't have a portrait of them with me, but their baby, small child, is the one in the portrait in the back room here, small print. They came up, they arrived first, stopped, camel sat down, they took the baby out of the basket that's sitting on the side of the camel, set it down on the ground, and then they set up the tent, and everyone else came in. The rest of the family arrived, and that's their world. The next morning, they're just getting all their stuff together to make the next move to the next place. So we're crossing paths this way. It was a fortuitous moment, at the right time, at the right place. And I would say that's probably almost all photographs have that same element to them. Behind Rena over there, the Blue Lake, the first photograph, that was on the first trip, actually second trip to the Russian Altai. There was this looming mountain range, Cibachrome or Turgan Ul, depending on which word you use, looming in the distance, further than you could walk to. So I finally got up there, tremendous snowstorm. The photo that looks like a black and white around the corner was taken. I wanted to climb the range, but that was out. So I went up to that picture, that one as well as the one on the wall here. Yeah, that one. So that was just one of those moments that a lot of really good photos happen. And I feel so fortunate that I was able to be there and caught that moment. So I want to talk about people. Landscape is what I cut my teeth on, but I really do love to do the portraiture too. Behind Rena there and Rob is the daughter of a very good friend. In fact, it's the daughter of the man Altai here. And when we first saw her, she was a young girl, and she was herding sheep and goats, and she was on horseback, and all taken off. And she was running down the valley trying to catch up with her horses and her animals. And we call that the Bodhisattva because she reminds us of a beautiful Bodhisattva, Buddhist Bodhisattva. Lovely, lovely people. And in the front window is her brother, Batsuk. And take a look carefully at that portrait sometime. We were camped with them. We just went back to visit one day. We took a day off and went back to spend some time visiting with them, spent the night. And in the evening, he came out with his little young daughter. She must have been 6 months old. And he wrapped his dell, which is the robe, around the baby. And he was just in love with that baby. It was just a moment of sure love and loving his place in the world, and I would say happiness. And so that was just, I was just so fortunate to be there when that happened. And so there's another one I was going to talk about. Oh yeah, the father in that photograph. There's a portrait of the two of them back in that part of the gallery. In the wintertime also, they wanted to go up into the high mountains to check on horses that were staying up there. And it's in the cold of the winter, and it's just toward the end of winter when they're about to, birthing is going to happen pretty soon. And so we tried to get up to the mountains, and we ran into a tremendous storm. And we in the wintertime, the horses really get so skinny they can't carry a load. And we were able to find 3 horses for the 3 of us that could carry us, but they were having a hard time carrying us. And we went as far as we could, and then we stopped, left the horses, and then we tried to go up into the mountains. We couldn't get there. But I just stopped in this pretty much of a whiteout, and and took the picture of the two brothers, Boulder Suk and Molson. And that was these are just parts of my memory, my great pleasure of working in this environment. And it also was a treat to have been there in the winter to see how life could work. The archaeology, I should mention a little bit. The rock carvings, that was petroglyphs. Rock carvings was one of the main things we were involved with. And I would say ask Esther about the rock carvings. She knows more than anyone else anywhere about these rock carvings. And so I just say, ask her about them if you have questions. Because if I try to answer the question, I won't get it quite right. But I do want to say that one of the treasures I found in a box, for me anyways, was this photograph. And it's a deer. We titled it Mythic Deer. But the deer is completely fanciful. There are no deers that look like that. Okay, in an earlier era, in the Bronze Age, perhaps animals would have been done very much, very realistically. But the art evolved from there into humorous and fanciful at times, and not just once, but quite a few opportunities of fanciful animals. And this one has. Whoever packed this was a very fine artist. This is not primitive art. This is beautiful art, and not only was it packed so beautifully, the rock that it was put on was chosen for its unusual bluish color. This is not the general color of the rock, but the artists used this as their canvas to make this incredible carving, and then 3,000 or 2,000, 3,000 years, 3,000 Esther, 2,500 years of aging, and 2,000 to 3,000 years of aging, more, 3 plus. Yeah, the carving has aged into a beautiful, beautiful canvas with lichens growing on it, and so that's another one of the great pleasures of discovering something that's so beautiful out there in the wilds.
Gary, do you say something about what the Uyghurs doing here?
Oh yeah.
Because that's really.
That's the next thing. Thank you for reminding me. There are a few standing stones in photographs of standing stones. In the back corner over there is a deer stone in a whole nother valley, right on the Chinese border. The Altai Mountains go into China, and we're right on the border there. And that's a deer stone. You'll have to ask Esther about deer stones. But they're important archaeology there. The standing stone at the far end was created in the Uyghur period. So has everybody here heard of Uyghurs? Okay, the Uyghurs are in the news because the Chinese are imprisoning them and forcing them into labor, and they're Islamic, Turkic people. And before the Mongol Empire, there was a Uyghur Empire that covered a major part of the Mongol Empire. And this is a remnant of that Uyghur period. And how many Uyghur sculptures did we find? A dozen or so?
I think that we found a dozen more sculptures. This is especially beautiful because the figure stands absolutely. It's got such dignity, such solemnity.
Do you mind to come here so
You should share the stage at Esther.
So you can say something, but I want to say one little thing. I was showing these photos at the Brooklyn Museum, and the head of Princeton photography there is a woman named Barbara Head. And she looked at that photo, and she, first of all, when she looks at photos, she puts it down on the table, and she gets within 6 inches of the photo. And And she just scans like this, and then she looks like this, and she looks, and she says, "You know what this is, don't you?" I said, "Yeah, I think I do know what it is." And she bought the photo and a bunch of others. And I mean, just a great phallus as far as she was concerned. So. There are two more. There's another photograph of some standing stones in the front, and they're Turkic, and that's one of the really wonderful. Yeah, but those two meters, the old metal. Turkic. Earlier. Okay, so the two standing stones there are right on the Chinese border, and the brother of our driver knew about them, and that's how we found them. And there are about 4 standing stones, 3 figures there, some other archaeology, and it's up in the high mountains where more moist than this area that we were working normally. There are trees there, there's pasture. So, yeah.
How did you communicate? They didn't speak your language.
Turkic sculptures.
Our lingua franca in our group was Russian. Esther speaks fluent Russian. I speak Pidgin Russian or some version. I just put words together. And the people we were working with, of course, Mongols would speak Mongolian, but the ethnic majority of where we were Kazakhs, and they speak a Turkic language. So the lingua franca, really was the Russian. And so our direct driver spoke Russian and Kazakh, and I think he spoke Mongolian.
Yeah, and the older people, like Altai, also Russians.
Right, older people who were educated would have learned Russian. So that we communicated with Altai in Russian, or Esther did.